AskReddit by Fluffy Upvote. Serious, what is the fastest way you have seen someone ruin their life? Attention. Serious, tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https://www.reddit.com/r/wiki/index-wiki_rule_6 in any comment parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please, contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose $to =r AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. A guy I met several times around our group of friends back in the days joined ISIS. We were all shocked by this news. No one could have predicted that. He literally exploded himself 2 or 3 months after, but no casualties. He was shot by the coalition. Remember, if they ask you to suicide bomb, it should be taken as a high insult. They are saying you have nothing to offer and losing you is fine. They are not asking anyone with useful skills or knowledge to suicide, and definitely not anyone with military experience. They don't think you are even worth trying to train. I wouldn't call them friends by any means, but an acquaintance and his girlfriend did a dine and dash, and their server followed them outside and stood in front of their car to prevent them from leaving until the police arrived. Stupid move on the server's part for sure, but all the same this acquaintance ran the server over and hit like 2 or 3 parked cars in the process getting out of the parking lot. So yay, they totaled their car, multiple other cars, and they both caught multiple felony charges. Both of them had priors too, ended up pleading, and as far as I can recall they both got roughly 5+ year sentences, over $40 mil. Maybe not 100% life ruining, but I'd say over $40 it's proportionally pretty fucking stupid. A close friend of my best friend grabbed his 8-year-old son's new skateboard and took off down a hill in Georgia. Hit a rock, landed on his head and had permanent brain damage. He lived years before he mercifully died. Had to be restrained the whole time because the damage made him erratic and violent. Wear a helmet. Yeah, my stepbrother fell on a longboard and his friends didn't call an ambulance because they were high. Went into a coma in his sleep and was never the same. Died recently, RIP. Watched a guy gamble $30 K away in a night and then cried about losing his life savings, and security had to get involved and escort him out because he started to get angry at the dealers because all they could offer him was free night stays at the hotel for playing so much, but he wanted free play at the tables slots and they refused. Any money you plan to gamble should be money you already consider spent and gone. One of my best friends was close to finishing his BA, got career plans, money, was physically fit. Everything was fine, but then on New Year's Eve night he went into a famous nightclub in Berlin, bought some drugs and then jumped from the 7th floor. Either he bought something he wasn't familiar with or the drugs were laced with something stronger. Anyway, security cameras have him aimlessly wandering the floors of his 20-story apartment building, and I guess he got paranoid and wanted out, so he jumped. Apparently he didn't die instantly but slowly bleed out over the next 30 minutes. But since this happened shortly after midnight, nobody noticed because of all the noise and fireworks. They found his body around 4 AM and ruled it suicide. Don't do drugs, it's not worth it. Dude I know won a $3 million settlement from being hit by a car. Spent it all on heroin and was dead within 3 years. Under 30 years old. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. To answer some of the questions I see in the thread. I don't think he got hooked on opioids due to the accident. This guy did a lot of weed and shrooms and occasionally coke even before the settlement. The money just allowed him to graduate to heroin. How'd he spend all that money? Sadly, he had a bunch of addict friends who he enabled. He'd treat them to free heroin at these lavish parties. There was a similar case in a city close to me. Guy won 15 million on a lottery ticket. Dude was homeless basically. He spent all the money in 5 years. They found him hanging from the rafters in a garage of a house he'd bought with the money. My cousin, 18F, finished her senior year early, so she was basically just waiting for me to do the graduation and get her diploma. She worked at a lake restaurant and had started hanging out with a bad crowd. At this time she had been smoking a lot of weed and drinking, as well as just being generally reckless all the time. She was my best friend, so she texted me to tell me about everything she did basically. One night she texted me to tell me that she had tried meth and it was the best high of her life, but she will never do it again. Exactly 1 month after that text she overdosed and died. They put her portrait in her graduation seat and her dad got to walk and pick up her diploma. I boofed it once and was addicted immediately. Not addicted because I enjoyed it, but I was physically addicted. Lungs would get uncomfortably cold and tight. I did it one more time after that, but I managed to never do it again. Meth is no joke. A previous classmate of mine robbed and shot a taxi driver in the back of the head when he was 17-14. Edit. I remembered incorrectly. The classmate was 14 at the time. Pretty sure he had dropped out of school, but this was close to 30 years ago. There was a 17-year-old accomplice that planned it but didn't actually pull the trigger. If you want to Google it, LeVar Jones Lancaster PA should do the trick. Hope he enjoyed his $200. Source, was a taxi driver. A friend of mine drove his bike without helmet, had the helmet, didn't bother to wear it. It was late at night. We were having a party at my home and he was coming to join us. It had rained earlier so the roads were wet. His motorbike unfortunately slipped and he fell, hitting his head on the curb. Some passerby called the ambulance. We got to know about it early in the morning from his parents. His head trauma caused him to go into a coma. He never came back from it. He was in a coma for a few months and then sadly passed away. He was a chill dude. If only he wore the helmet while driving. Rest easy D. Edit. He was an avid biker, drove his bike across the country all the way to the Himalayas. He used to wear helmet all the time except for that fateful night. I was having a party at my home, you know, BBQ, beer, whiskey and all that. He was gonna join us after work. He had the helmet on him even that day. I will never know why he decided to not wear it that day. 1 Use of meth. Seen so many people and friends jump right off the deep end by just trying it, and after 20 years have yet to jump out of the self-made dumpster fire that is their life. Nasty shit, meth. I think I got extremely lucky here. I got kicked out of my house once for something else. Must have not been that big a deal if I can't remember. My parents were hella strict. Anyway, I went to a friend's house, a house we all always just show up to when we're bored. His parents were never around, and the few people that were there when I got there were about to smoke meth. I said fuck it, why not, and joined them. After taking 1 hit I didn't want any more and went downstairs. I felt super sleepy so I lied down on the couch and passed out. Woke up an hour later and thought that drug was useless and never touched it again. Unfortunately, every single one of those people that were in that room with me, who helped me smoke that meth or la, were either doing time, lost their mind or dead. Watched a buddy spend his entire life savings betting on the Paulo Costa Visa de Sanaya. I begged him not to do it and he lost his and his wife's entire 60k nest egg. She left him immediately with the kids and now he lives at his mom's house. Edit. Wow, this blew up. So a little more backstory. He had been betting on prize fighting for a short while and winning. Nothing outrageous, and heck I even bet with him on a time or two because it was smaller bets, 1-200. He had been winning, probably made a few grand, not sure how much, but he was always saying he won and showing off his bets. So I can confirm he had been winning and his luck was pretty impressive. As far as I know he doesn't gamble anymore and is just trying to rebuild his life. He lost his wife but does spend a lot of time with the kids. Holy shit. He bet on Costa ? That somehow makes it even worse. A senior girl from my college pushed another girl she was friends with off a 30-foot bridge into water as a joke, broke her neck and collarbone, and she's permanently in a wheelchair. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up while I was asleep. I'll answer some questions. 1. I got feet and meters mixed up, only around 30-foot drop. 2 days in hospital for her friend, 2 days in jail for the girl who pushed her. She spent the same time in jail as the victim spent in hospital. It's fucked up. 3. The parents of the victim chose not to press charges. 4. It was not Taylor Smith. 5. I remember seeing that on the news. Didn't she leave when she realized the other girl was seriously hurt? Or am I thinking of a different story? Edit. I'm thinking of Taylor Smith pushing Jordan Holgerson off a 50-foot bridge after Jordan hesitated when she was going to jump. Jordan broke 5 ribs and both her lungs were punctured, and Taylor just left the scene after pushing her. Arrive at work on their first day as a temp at around 10 AM. Caught stealing the boss's wallet at 12:30. Taken away by police at 1 PM. Obviously I'm overthinking this, but boy, it sure seems it would be easier pickpocketing strangers in a crowd. My sister started doing meth and heroin. She went from super smart to completely dumb. By the age of 19 she was already a felon. No one in the family wants to help her anymore, cause each time we tried, either sending her to rehab or tried getting her sober, she would just go back to it. Was supposed to go to college, but now she's 22 and stays at different people's houses and begs people for money. Completely cut me and everyone else off from her cause she thinks us trying to help her is us being jealous and not wanting her to be happy in life. It's a rough life. My brother went through the same cycle. We lost him to an overdose last October. He would have been 35 the next month. Have a friend who had a drinking problem and got into an argument with a gas station worker while drunk. The worker tried stopping his car by standing in front of it and my friend ran him over and killed him. Wife, career, freedom, everything lost. Honorable mention. The gas station worker. A high school friend drove drunk and killed the local doctor of a small town. Last I heard, he was still in prison. High school student, graduated at the time, drove a classmate of mine home from prom, crashed and killed classmate. Driver becomes a paraplegic, goes to prison. Gets out, driving disability modded van, gets in another accident, and kills another woman passenger. Second one was a DUI. He was at fault for the first bit, I'm unsure if DUI. The kid in the National Guard posting govt secrets online for internet cred. Oh yeah, what happened to him after that? I saw he was arrested but not the outcome. I wound up having to change the number for my first real cell phone, because the previous owner of that number still kept giving it out. Apparently she had just moved, and her old job couldn't get a hold of her to send her last check. Her new job couldn't get a hold of her to get her schedule. Her vet couldn't get her to pick up her cat. I got calls from her leasing company who needed documentation to secure her apartment. Every single day was some new way an idiot was fucking up her finances, her housing, her job, her pets, her social life, all because she couldn't remember her new phone number. After a month I finally got fed up and had the number changed. Melissa, if you were supposed to be a massage therapist for the PGA Tour in 2013, I hope you eventually got your shit together. Deleted. The construction to amphetamines pipeline. I've seen 2 very good and competent men fall to absolute ruin in the space of 4 months because of this. I was going to say cocaine, but this fits the bill too. My daughter's boyfriend, the 4th of July, 2023. Hopped in his car blackout drunk to come see my daughter. DUI and hit and amp, run. He is just about to begin a painful, life-altering process. This reads like a literary shotgun racking sound. The guy who got angry playing basketball and smashed his head, leaving him paralyzed. Edit. This all equals share and amp. UTM medium equals Android app and amp. UTM name equals androids and amp. UTM term equals 1 and amp. UTM content equals 1. I saw that. Of the many things I've seen, that one was one of the hardest. Broke his C6 vertebrae, I think. I watched this clip on Reddit where these two kids were posing with a gun. The girl in the video accidentally shot the boy in the head. She panicked and shot herself. That shit changed me. It all happened so fast. I don't think the clip was longer than 30 seconds. Yeah, I saw that on the WPD website a bit ago. Very sad because the whole family comes rushing in and you can hear them screaming. Former friend of mine was arrested for soliciting an 11-year-old for sexual favors online and traveling across states to meet her. I never expected him to do that. His girlfriend at the time asked if I wanted to be a character witness and I noped out before she finished her sentence. Judge made an example out of him and sentenced him to life. Apparently it wasn't his first SAR offense. I can't believe she even stuck around to even consider looking for people to testify on his behalf. Edit. He got the girl to do stuff to him in his car. He was only caught after her friend saw pictures of her boyfriend and realized he was way too old to be an 11-year-old boyfriend and told the girl's mother. He was 31 when he was sentenced. I'd be a character witness. I just might not give him the glowing testimony he was hoping for. My old best friend went to boarding school, had a great expensive education and grades, then he raped someone. The girl called the police whilst he was doing it and he didn't realize it was all recorded as well. Prison for 5 years and registered sex offender for life at the age of 19. I knew someone who had a full scholarship to an in-state university. He got addicted to heroin, overdosed, fell into a coma, and now he's confined to a wheelchair and has the mental capacity of a toddler. It happened within 2 or 3 years. Holy fuck. And this thread is 50% drug stories. Scary stuff. My father-in-law is 65. Was married to his wife for 37 years and has 3 daughters. The picture perfect family from the outside looking in. He was well respected in his career field and was also an interim pastor deacon at our local church. After he retired, his health started to deteriorate drastically and he started drinking. This past November we learned that he had fell for a love scam on Facebook and had spent his entire life savings, took out a second mortgage on his home, and opened up numerous credit cards to send this fake person money. All in all, he sent them roughly $300k. He was truly convinced she was going to move here from overseas and they were going to ride off into the sunset, leave everything behind, and live happily ever after. Now he is divorced, lives in a crummy apartment about 45 minutes from his family, and is miserable. He can barely walk and has essentially Z'd. Deleted. My cousin fell for one of those to catch a predator style police stings. The day of the sting he posted something on his Facebook about going to have a great night. I even responded saying awesome man, have fun. Well, that night he tried to meet a 14-year-old girl for sex and found a bunch of cops instead. Was charged with multiple felonies, got kicked out of his PhD program, lost his job, lost his wife, killed himself 2 months later. He was 28 years old and had everything going for him. Great job, crazy book smarts, a bright future with his family. I wonder what the psychology is behind people who just throw it all away. Do they just think they're above consequences? Crime, specifically felonies. My lawyer took out a loan forging my signature. He's doing 15 years in federal prison. I would have given him the $5,000. His kid was very sick and I would have gladly helped him out. Well, that sucks. An old customer got fired from Uber and Didi for being slow arriving with cold food way too often. Comes into my bar the next day with limited edition XO weekend sweater plus jeans, new Apple Watch and new iPhone, all paid cash. Says he took out a payday loan for $10k and doesn't intend to pay it back, he'll just cancel the bank account. His exact words, who needs credit anyways. He stopped showing up to the bar after about 3 months, never saw him again. Edit. For those asking, no, I don't think this is some mafia shit. A very stupid decision by a reckless individual, with no way to pay any of it back and incurring crazy debt interest at 22 years old. My sister-in-law went off her bipolar meds at 42 to try to have a baby. That was 3 months ago and now she's in jail awaiting sentencing for threatening a police officer with a knife among many other things. She lost her job, her house, most of her friends. Just turned feral and angry. Girl's divorce sent her into a manic episode. Her friends understood, but she lost her medical license, that she had less than a year, because she posted patient information on social media. She lost her job, made her lose her income, so she lost her home. She decided to stay in nice hotels, from the mania, and was in debt by the end of 2 weeks. As a bipolar lawyer who held on to his license by the skin of his teeth, I feel this one hard. A guy from the general area I lived in. Him, 18 at the time, and girl broke up, ended up kidnapping her 3 weeks later and shooting her twice in the head with a handgun he took of his parents' gun safe. Tried driving 5 hours away to his grandparents' ranch to hide the body, ditched his phone driving down the highway. SWAT team was waiting for him when he showed up at said ranch. Made news headlines in company. Edit, reread news article about it and it was actually 3 gunshots. Something similar happened to a girl at my kid's high school just this year. Girl was a senior graduating with sports scholarships and had a bright future, but her ex came and murdered her in her home. Police caught up to him in the state he had moved to. Had a friend that had the perfect girlfriend, a good career path, and just so many things going his way. Then the dude picked drugs over his girlfriend and basically he gave up on everything for drugs. I haven't heard from the guy in about 7 years, so TBH, I don't even know if he's still alive. That guy who did the AML or whatever it was after trying heroin once and claimed he had the strength to never do it again. Spoiler alert, he did it again. A lot of times. He did eventually recover. I know a guy who came home drunk to his parents' house, got in an argument with his stepfather and punched him once. Stepfather died. Guy ended up in prison on a murder conviction. Lost my best friend of nearly a decade to fentanyl 3 months ago. Guy was such a talented artist and a hard worker, but experimentation got the best of him. He bought what he thought were perks, they weren't. I wrote his obituary, helped his mom clean and go through his room. He lived at home, paid for his cremation, etc. It's been so incredibly hard. He was like my other half. I miss him. My old friend ran across the street without looking because her dog was getting attacked by a snake. The car was probably going over 60 miles per hour and it ran into her. She's alive to this day, but she did suffer serious and permanent injuries. This happened years ago, by the way. It was traumatizing for her and everyone, including me, that saw it happen. At that time, I lived in a third world country, so the streets were busy as hell. It was also a rainy day, so it was hard for drivers to see. It was truly no one's fault. The driver also took responsibility. Secondary school friend of mine. Fellow nurse colleague and amp father. Decided it would be a good idea to steal a fuck ton of medication. Got caught, fired and struck off. Went from prescription medications to hard drugs. Wife left him and took the kid. OD'd and died last October. This all happened within the space of about 4 months, the speed in which he went from top of our profession, to willing to throw it all away, to unemployed, to literally dead, absolutely blindsided me. I'll never know now, obviously, but I have a strong suspicion he had a secret addiction that he managed to keep very, very under wraps. Only 31. Dude I worked with came back after a weekend and told everyone he had tried meth, and he liked it. Like a month later he came into my workspace and asked for a pair of pliers. I gave them to him and he pulled a tooth right there in front of me like it was nothing. He quit shortly after, not sure what happened to him. He was very young, Like 20 maybe. This is honestly horrifying. In college, my friends partied with a guy who got drunk as fuck and tried to jump between two balconies. I want to say that they were 3 stories up. He didn't make it and fell onto the concrete below. Legend has it that he got himself up and walked into the house. More likely some friends carried him and laid down on the couch to sleep it off. When he woke up the next morning he couldn't move. He was completely paralyzed and would never walk again. The saddest part was that he was a musician in an up and coming band. I think about him every now and then and I hope he's doing okay. The numbnut that carved on the Colosseum. What's the punishment for that? And why did someone film it rather than stopping it? A coach at the school I worked at led the boys basketball team to state and was awarded Coach of the Year. Comments on the post about his award started filling up with sexual assault accusations from former students. Obviously an investigation was immediately launched and he shot himself in the head by the end of the week. Literally went from being awarded and praised to dead by suicide within days. Left behind a wife and 2 young kids. Drugs. My father went from a normal, functioning individual with a house and a $200k yearly salary to a man sleeping in his BMW, with bad tags, outside a church, in the course of about 18 months. All because he'd much rather smoke his life away than live normally or be a grandfather. Former co-worker, had not had the best life. Had previously been a coke addict, some trouble with the law. But had realized he had issues and was turning his life around. Kicked the coke habit, had a steady job, had a decent home. Was working on custody of his kid. And then someone brought coke to the Christmas party. He went on a bender, never made it back to work. And from what I heard was back in jail by New Year's. Someone I went to school with, after we graduated, him and a friend were drinking one summer night and messing around on a skid steer. I live in a small town. Apparently one of the boys was in the bucket part, and one was driving. They hit a bump and the boy in the bucket fell out, and got ran over. It killed him. To make the story worse, the boy who died, his older brother had died just a couple years previous, and that older brother was best friends with the one who accidentally killed his younger brother. So this guy dealt with the death of one of his best friends, and then accidentally killed another friend, who happened to be his deceased best friend's brother. It really messed him up. Parents apparently walked into his room with a gun in his mouth. I have no idea how the guy is doing these days because I don't think he has any social medias. In high school he was pretty popular. Played football, but was generally nice. Wonder if he's holding up okay these days. And before anyone comments negativity, yes, it was wrong they were drinking and messing with such equipment. But it's still tragic and I'm sure he's been punished enough by his own thoughts for it. Watch Toxie's Roxy's turn a kind and smart girl into a scab-covered felon in roughly 5 months, and watch Meth turn a talented musician into an attempted murderer in less than 6 weeks. He attacked his own mama with a hatchet. The amount of time it took for him to finish his first bump of coke. He was hooked instantly and been chasing it ever since. He's been hospitalized at least once, and as many as 4 times, due to complications that are hitting him harder and harder. Your septum can basically disintegrate with too much cocaine. Use just one big nostril. A guy I worked with at Papa John's when I was in college bought a gun from a co-worker. Our other co-worker got robbed delivering a pizza. He told me he wants to see if it works. He went and shot it into an empty developing neighborhood into some trees. The bullets hit a house behind the trees with a family and kids. Nobody was hurt but they were scared to death. Police immediately came and arrested him before he could even pull off. They were camping out in that neighborhood already since people were coming at night to smoke weed, have sex and shoot guns. SMH. He shot 3 shots. Got 25 years in prison for attempted murder and reckless endangerment. First time ever shooting a gun. We were only 19. This was in 2006. I think about him a lot. We weren't close like that. But he's still in prison over a 5-second mistake 17 years later. Really nerdy kid too. First time ever in trouble. I follow his. Also, my roommate a few weeks later was struggling financially and decided to buy 2 pounds of weed to sell with his student loan refund check. Got pulled over and arrested the same day. Got 5 years. Can't make this shit up. The prison system takes first time offenders and makes them into lifelong criminals. That poor kid. Friend of mine had a girlfriend that was notorious for tying men to herself by accidentally getting pregnant when things weren't going well in the relationship. At that point, she already had 3 kids from different guys while in her early mid-20s. Said friend was lucky enough that things ended before she could do that again. However, his best friend caught feelings for her too and had an on-off relationship for a couple of months. To no one's surprise, she got preggo, and he now has to pay for a child he hasn't seen once. She's on child number 5 now. BTW.